I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. Here it is, true believers, the last installment to my series of Spider-Man cartoon reviews. And MTV Spider-Man couldn't receive the ratings to continue with a second season. Sony took another stab at the character that was age-appropriate called Spectacular Spider-Man. With the failure of that last series, you can only wonder what they can do to pull themselves out of that rut. Oh, that's gonna be good. If that name don't sound familiar, Greg Weisman has been in animation for a while, having been the showrunner of Gargoyles and currently Young Justice, which is supposedly coming back through online streaming, the last I heard. With the incarnation of Spider-Man, it was incorporated into the Kids WB, which meant the action was toned down from the edginess and language of the last series. Rather than have Peter in college, the show focuses on his high school years, which is a good change in pace. The show doesn't feature an origin story, which, frankly, isn't that necessary nowadays. Since Spider-Man has been done in movies and TV consistently throughout 10 years, having another origin story would only feel redundant since it's a story we've heard dozens of times before. What I also like about this show's approach to Peter Parker is that, guess what? He actually looks like a teenager. No awkward voice acting or overly buffed character design to make him appear like a rugged adult. Along with Aunt May, all of Peter's regular friends and foes appear, including Gwen Stacy. Now what I find funny is how the first time we really get to see this character used in any sort of Spider-Man material, outside of the comics. I know technically she appeared in the Spider-Man animated series from the 90s, but a character in that didn't seem like a version that stuck close to the comics. She was smart, going to school with Peter, and eventually his first real girlfriend. Mary Jane makes an appearance in the show, but before Mary Jane it was Gwen Stacy. I really give credit to this show for making her a more interesting character than I already knew her in the comic before, which in all fairness is the girlfriend who dies. Her death was so popular that much like Uncle Ben is what defined Peter's character. In recent years it seems like this isn't the same case, showing that there was more to her character than redefining great power with a moral cost that we all know to death. Well, no pun intended. Other characters that are given a treatment include Eddie Brock. At some point, you need to have him hate Peter Parker in order to become the fan favorite Venom. However, in the series from '94, he was made out to be a pretty big bully from the beginning. It don't help, since this is similar to the character in the comics. It was over time that we see him as a more complex character that made us sympathize with him, rather than see him as a guy who merged with a Kiss band member with an H.R. Geiger illustration. It was in this series that we get a more relatable Eddie Brock. He was an older classmate who Peter looked up to, working as an intern with Dr. Curtis Connors. However, through misunderstandings, he turns on Peter, which leads to his eventual hatred of the character. However, the shift between the friendship is what makes us understand the awkward situation these characters are in. Mostly because this isn't alluded to, we are actually exposed to it. The same goes to Batman the Animated Series and the character Harvey Dent. Before becoming the villain Two-Face, we as an audience see Bruce Wayne and his friendship with Harvey, dedicating a substantial number of episodes to see the friendship evolve. Therefore, when he ultimately turns into Two-Face, it puts both characters in an unfortunate situation. It's a good model to use, and I felt they didn't rip it off, but understood how it makes us relate to the characters. Now what's funny is that this isn't just for Eddie Brock, but other characters like Curtis Connors, and even the Green Goblin. Sadly, this series didn't really get a full chance to showcase most of its strengths. The downside to most comic book shows is how the cliffhanger is appropriate when dealing with serialized adventures we follow with our favorite characters. Therefore, when Disney brought back the TV rights to the character, Sony was unable to continue using the character on TV. Now on the plus side to this, we got Spidey showing up in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes and... well... and I did mention that he was used in Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, right? Hey, I ain't saying the studio that owns the characters determines how well the character goes. It really depends on the effort that goes into the storytelling. Before Iron Man, Spider-Man was the face of Marvel in the same way Batman is the face of DC. Therefore, any studio will always want to have Spider-Man will think of the potential money he'll bring in. So who knows, now that Marvel has creative control of the character, maybe forcing movies out of the character's marketability isn't gonna happen. Oh, that's a good one. I apologize, but I wish I could say more about this show. Truth be told, I don't think I can. Back when I talked about Invader Zim, I mentioned how this was a show I couldn't get into, with my main reason being that it had a huge cult following that kept me from wanting to check it out sooner. However, when that died down and I did get a chance to watch the whole thing, I can say I understand where the passion came from. Much like its predecessor from the 90s, that it focused a lot on telling as much about the character as they can. However, if the previous Spider-Man series from the 90s had, it was time. This show barely lasted 2 seasons, did not resolve a lot of its stories, and as mentioned before, ended in a cliffhanger. That's a shame, because if the show had lasted longer, most people would know about this series. Its animation style, while different and simplified, was good with dealing with complex action animation. It takes all the good aspects of the previous Spider-Man series and improves on it. I only wish we had more episodes to give us a more complete picture. However, from what we have, I'm glad I saw this show. Choose what you will when it comes from this show. I don't like forcing my opinions on you, but for what this series had to offer, it's worth it. So a lot of you guys have been asking me why I haven't talked about Spider-Man, the new animated series on Disney XD. Well, here's the thing, I don't own Disney XD. So until I can afford that cable package, then I can watch those cartoons. However, if you want to help me out a little financially, why don't you go ahead and donate to my Patreon? It's got some good rewards, so that I can afford to watch more cartoons that you guys want me to watch. Comment below and let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think about this Spider-Man animated series. I'm Joey.T.Cartoon.P and thanks for watching these reviews on the Cartoon Palooza.